I can't help feeling that's precisely what Göbekli Tepe is. It's a time capsule. It's a memorial to a lost time. And I think that what we're looking at in that whole area is the outcome of contact with an earlier.
In the hills of southeastern Turkey, something incredible has just been revealed. With the help of powerful artificial intelligence and advanced 3D scanning, researchers have analyzed every carved symbol on the massive stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe, and what they discovered is raising questions no one expected. We are not looking at random decorative hunter-gatherer art. These are not just nice carvings. They are a coherent, rigidly standardized, and deeply complex system, a language of stone, across 12 different archaeological sites spanning a massive region of 150 kilometers. At least 20 distinct pictographs repeat in completely consistent, predictable patterns. This appears to be, with absolute archaeological certainty, the oldest standardized communication network in human history, created a staggering 6,000 years before the Sumerians supposedly invented writing. And what the computer algorithms decoded in those ancient patterns is far more disturbing, far more structured, and far more deliberate than anyone ever imagined. These symbols do not just tell simple stories or depict animals. They encode a precisely organized warning, a massive cosmic message carved into solid stone 11,000 years ago, meant specifically for whoever would eventually possess the advanced scanning technology required to understand it. That civilization, that intended audience, is us. And the decoded message waiting for us is absolutely horrifying. When the brilliant German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt first began meticulously excavating Göbekli Tepe in 1995, he unearthed massive T-shaped pillars completely covered in carved animal reliefs: powerful lions, silent foxes, lethal scorpions, soaring vultures, writhing snakes, and aggressive boars. For decades, the official, mainstream interpretation stopped right there. This was beautiful art, perhaps religious symbols or sacred totems representing different hunter-gatherer clans meeting for seasonal rituals. Everything completely changed when modern researchers unleashed AI pattern recognition software on the entire corpus of symbols across the site. The complex neural networks were not trained to appreciate prehistoric aesthetics or see beautiful art. They were trained to detect repeating mathematical relationships, statistical correlations, and systematic syntax. What they found instantly pulverized everything we thought we knew about our prehistoric past. The AI identified approximately 20 core pictographs that recur with mathematical consistency across Göbekli Tepe and at least 11 other sister sites in the region. We are not looking at crude, passing scratches. These are formalized, standardized symbols, always carved the same way, always positioned in similar contexts, and always repeated across hundreds of towering pillars spanning centuries of continuous construction. This is exactly what linguists define as a semasiographic system, symbols that convey precise, standardized meaning entirely without encoding spoken language. It is not quite writing as we know it, but it is certainly not random decoration. It is a deliberate, highly efficient communication network created by a people who supposedly had no writing, no permanent cities, and no centralized government. Yet here they were, successfully transmitting complex information, perhaps highly technical or cosmological data, through universally agreed-upon visual symbols across a network of diverse communities spanning thousands of square kilometers. Consider the incredible organizational infrastructure required to execute that. Different groups, potentially speaking vastly different languages and separated by days of grueling travel across treacherous terrain, were all using the exact same symbols to mean the exact same things. That is not an accident. That is deeply coordinated, regional, cultural transmission of specialized knowledge passed down across generations. The AI frequency analysis revealed something even more sophisticated. Specific emblematic animals completely dominate specific, massive enclosures. Enclosure A is utterly overwhelmed with serpentine carvings. Dozens of writhing snakes are intricately carved in groups and woven into complex, symmetrical net patterns covering entire pillar surfaces. Enclosure B belongs entirely to the foxes. Both of its massive central pillars feature powerful, large fox reliefs, each one measuring over 1 meter tall, standing guard in the silent center. Enclosure C displays predominantly aggressive boars with snakes almost completely absent. Enclosure D, the largest, oldest, and most architecturally complex structure, displays the broadest symbolic variety, including vultures, scorpions, lions, cranes, spiders, insects, and the most intricate symbolic compositions found anywhere on the entire hilltop. This spatial distribution is not random chaotic choice. The AI statistical analysis mathematically confirms what archaeologists had long suspected. Each massive enclosure represents a different profound group identity, different clans, or different powerful kinship bands. When diverse people gathered at Göbekli Tepe for whatever shared purpose brought them there, they went to their own consecrated enclosure. The Fox people met in enclosure B, the Boar people congregated in enclosure C, the Snake people met in enclosure A. We are looking at totemism, one of the oldest known forms of social organization, preserved in solid stone with mathematical precision. But the AI detected something even more sophisticated when it analyzed how symbols appear together. The neural networks identified powerful co-occurrence patterns, rules of a shared symbolic grammar that defy random chance distribution. Specific symbols cluster together far more frequently than random statistics would ever predict. The snake and the H symbol, for example, cluster together on 68% of pillars where both appear. The fox and certain geometric patterns show a similar, undeniable correlation. The scorpion almost never appears on any pillar surface without at least one bird carved nearby. These are not compositional coincidences, they are grammatical rules. Think about the implications of that. Different carvers working across different enclosures, potentially separated by decades or even centuries, were all rigidly following the same established conventions about which symbols belong together. That is cultural transmission of deeply complex, specialized mathematical information. That is a standardized shared symbolic grammar being taught and passed down across millennia. And here is what makes it even more remarkable. When the AI compared early pillars to later ones, it found that these rigid pairing rules become progressively less strict over time. The oldest, most elaborate pillars follow these pairing conventions with absolute rigidity. The later pillars show more chaotic variation and more clear mistakes, as if subsequent generations of carvers were working from a rapidly fading memory of complex symbolic rules they no longer fully understood. The AI statistical analysis perfectly quantified this catastrophic cultural amnesia. In Layer 3, the oldest construction phase, symbol pairing follows the predicted grammatical patterns 92% of the time. In Layer 2, built 500 to 800 years later, that drops to 73%. By the final occupation phase, right before the site was deliberately buried, it is down to 58%, barely better than random chance. The knowledge was being lost, not slowly and gradually across millions of years, but catastrophically. Within just 800 years, people went from rigidly following complex mathematical symbolic rules to barely remembering them. What could possibly cause that specific kind of profound cultural forgetting? The AI analysis did not just focus on individual symbols. It detected a level of sophisticated, complex planning in the spatial layout that should be impossible. When neural networks mapped the precise geometric positions of the centers of enclosures B, C, and D, they found something that, according to mainstream archaeology, would be impossible for hunter-gatherers. The centers of these three massive structures form a perfect equilateral triangle. Not approximately equal. It is a mathematically perfect equilateral triangle. The sides match to within fractions of an inch over distances of hundreds of feet. This single fact requires an understanding of advanced geometry, trigonometry, and complex surveying techniques that supposedly would not be developed by human civilization for 6,000 more years. But here it is, carved into the very landscape of that hilltop, proving that these supposedly simple people possessed mathematical, geometric, and complex architectural planning abilities at levels we did not think possible. This brings us to the most complex, debated, and terrifying artifact on the entire hilltop, Pillar 43, also known as the Vulture Stone. Located in Enclosure D, on the western face of a massive limestone monolith standing over 2 meters tall, is a carved scene that has become the single most analyzed piece of prehistoric art in all of archaeology. The AI compositional analysis reveals that Pillar 43 is absolutely unique at the entire site. The neural networks meticulously counted and cataloged every single distinct carved element on the pillar's western face, identifying 47 separate, organized figures. No other single pillar's surface contains that density of planned information. Furthermore, unlike other pillars where animals are distributed across available space, Pillar 43 shows evidence of intentional layout planning with millimeter precision. The entire composition is structured, arranged in deliberate horizontal bands, stacked vertically precisely like sentences on a page, organized into clear registers of meaning. Someone meticulously planned this entire composition before a single carving began. Someone knew exactly where every single one of those 47 elements would go. This level of intense, millimeter pre-planning profoundly suggests that Pillar 43 is not just recording events as they casually happened, like a simple story. It is presenting highly organized information according to a predetermined template, a standardized format for data recording. And templates require shared understanding. If you organize information according to a specific format, that format must mean something precise to your intended audience. They have to recognize the structure, instantly understand what type of information belongs in which specific position, and read the entire composition exactly the way the creators intended it to be read. Pillar 43 was not carved for the personal expression of the carver. It was carved for readers who had come to this enclosure perhaps decades later, and read the message organized in this precise, complex way. This was a message important enough to plan meticulously, precise enough to measure and align with millimeter accuracy, and complex enough to require 47 distinct elements arranged in structured registers. The elements themselves are chilling. At the top of the pillar are 3 handbag-shaped symbols, each accompanied by a small animal figure. Below that are rows of numerical V-shaped symbols arranged in perfectly aligned horizontal friezes. In the center is a massive vulture, one wing raised vertically, the other pointing directly at a prominent disc or sphere. Below the vulture is a large scorpion, surrounded by scattered birds. 8 shaped symbols appear throughout the site, but the most horrifying element is at the bottom. A human figure, anatomically male, clearly depicted with an erect phallus and absolutely no head. The neck ends abruptly where the head should be. This is where the 2017 analysis by Martin Sweatman from the University of Edinburgh detonated like a bomb in the archaeological community. Sweatman claimed the AI was not looking at abstract mythology or ritual symbolism. It was looking at advanced astronomy, a sophisticated star map carved into stone, permanently documenting the single most catastrophic date in human history. Sweatman fed high-resolution images of the entire pillar into powerful astronomical simulation software. The AI compared the precise positions and orientations of the carved animals to the positions of the constellations throughout all of history. What it found was staggering. The vulture aligned perfectly with Sagittarius. The scorpion matched Scorpius. Other birds corresponded to Libra, Orcus, and Pisces. When the AI reconstructed the night sky for the exact stellar positions indicated by the carvings on Pillar 43, it landed on one specific, unavoidable date: the summer solstice, 10,950 BCE, 12,970 years ago. This date corresponds almost exactly to the beginning of the Younger Dryas impact event, the moment when evidence suggests massive fragments of a comet struck the Earth, triggering catastrophic, rapid climate change that plunged the planet back into an ice age for over 1,000 years and nearly ended the human species. Sweatman's 2024 analysis went even deeper into the AI pattern recognition data, decoding the numerical system carved into the stone. He revealed that the rows of V-shaped symbols on Pillar 43 are not decorative. They are numerical. The AI tallied the patterns across different sections of the pillar and found sequences that correspond to a perfect 365-day solar calendar. This is sophisticated lunisolar astronomical knowledge that supposedly would not be developed for another 7,000 years. Sweatman's crucial add-on analysis proves this wasn't just a simple count. The V symbols represent 12 lunar cycles, plus exactly 11 extra epigomenal days added to perfectly sync the calendar with the precise solar year. By using the unchangeable, predictable constants of nature, the moon and the sun, the builders created a lunisolar date stamp for that cosmic catastrophe that could never be mistranslated. The AI detected other cyclical patterns across the site. Neural networks analyzed the spacing and repetition of symbols on multiple pillars in enclosure D and detected clear cyclical patterns, timekeeping sequences, and tracking of specific celestial cycles appearing at regular intervals. Sweatman calculated that these patterns encode a complex mathematical understanding of the precession of the equinoxes. The 25,920-year cycle of the Earth's axial wobble. The AI's statistical analysis suggested the probability of these patterns occurring by pure chance was less than 1 in 5 million. Either this was the most extraordinary coincidence in human history, or the builders of Göbekli Tepe possessed advanced, complex astronomical knowledge that challenges everything we believe about the entire development of human civilization. This brings us to the truly horrifying question. If Sweatman's interpretation is partially correct, if these symbols do encode warnings, then the message isn't just historical data. It is predictive. The AI detected that the cyclical patterns don't just mark past events, they mark recurring intervals, a repeating cosmic rhythm. The symbols suggest that whatever disaster struck 12,900 years ago follows a mathematical pattern, returns on a predictable celestial schedule, and repeats according to orbital mechanics we are only now beginning to understand. If the specific timeline encoded in the stone is accurate, we may be approaching another catastrophic turning point in that cycle within our own lifetimes, perhaps within the next few decades. Mainstream archaeology fiercely debates this interpretation. The German Archaeological Institute, the official authority at Göbekli Tepe, published a formal, devastating rebuttal dismantling Sweatman's claims point by point. First is the date conflict. Sweatman's constellation analysis points to 10,950 BCE, but multiple radiocarbon datings of Enclosure D place construction at 9,530 BCE at the earliest. The pillar cannot depict a live event that occurred 1,400 years before it was carved, unless the builders were documenting information from an incredibly deep oral tradition. Stories of disaster passed down across 50 generations and preserved with astronomical, mathematical precision. That scenario is possible, but extraordinary. A second problem concerns the constellations themselves. Sweatman assumes that Neolithic hunter-gatherers recognized the exact same arbitrary star patterns, the constellations, as the ancient Greeks 8,000 years later. Constellations are cultural constructs. Different societies group stars entirely differently. The AI was trained on Greek constellation patterns and then asked to find matches at Göbekli Tepe. Of course, it found matches. A separate 2024 team using AI trained on stellar positions from multiple ancient cultures, Egyptian, Babylonian, Chinese, and indigenous Australian sky knowledge, found entirely different matches, interpreting the same symbols as Milky Way structures, meteor showers, and comets. But the physical evidence is more chilling. The transcript highlights the headless man on Pillar 43. But in 2017, archaeologists found gruesome physical proof that this was not just abstract, religious mythology. Deep in the dirt of Göbekli Tepe, they unearthed fragments of actual human skulls that had been intentionally grooved and drilled with holes, modified so they could be strung up and displayed as part of an intense skull cult. The builders of this site were terrified, and their rituals were deeply, physically connected to death in the sky. This creates a final, brain-breaking paradox. How did nomadic hunter-gatherers coordinate this 150-kilometer standardized communication network for 800 years? How did they feed the massive, specialized workforce required to quarry, move, and carve these towering multi-ton pillars? The genetic bombshell drop makes the answer clear. Geneticists traced the DNA of all modern domesticated einkorn wheat back to a mountain called Karaka Dagh, just 60 miles away. Agriculture was invented specifically to feed the people building Göbekli Tepe. The desperate need to construct this warning system forced humanity to invent agriculture. This profound realization takes on new meaning when combined with the AI's data on catastrophic cultural amnesia. Symbols peaking early and then declining, simplification, degradation, crude imitation. This is not the typical development of a new system. It is the erosion of an old one. They were trying to copy a highly advanced mathematical symbolic system they no longer fully understood. The builders of Göbekli Tepe did not create this system. They inherited it from a culture with sophisticated, perhaps advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge. The deliberate burial around 8000 BCE, preserving every symbol under thousands of tons of earth, was not abandonment. It was preservation, protecting the most important information they had in the most durable way possible, burying it so it would survive whatever came next, waiting for a civilization advanced enough with 3D scans and advanced neural networks to finally decode it. We are studying it. We are decoding it. The patterns are there. But we still cannot fully explain what hunter-gatherers at the supposed dawn of human communication were trying so desperately to tell us before their knowledge disappeared forever into the darkness of forgotten history. Are we looking at the birth of human communication, or the twilight of something older, something horrifying, trying to warn us before its knowledge was lost forever?